okay, then this kind of leads into me talking about white people. So people with a European background, and I hope that you can tell that that's what I am. Okay, I don't have, as far as I know, I don't have any Semitic blood. That'd be really cool. But we do seem to have some native blood, but not any more than like a lot of people have native blood because we have Dutch people go back all the way. It looks like all the way back to when the Pilgrims got here, and the Pilgrims first were in Holland because it was the only place they could find religious freedom, and then they came here. So those were English people, but then Dutch people probably came with them. And our Dutch could have been English and Dutch both that came with them. So all the way back to the 1600s, and in that time, a lot of the time there were many more men who had come over. It was a dangerous trip. It was an adventuresome trip, much more attractive to men. And there wouldn't be a lot of women here, so they'd marry native women. It was just a natural outcome of this situation. And a lot of people have that in their family, though probably plenty want to forget about it. And I was noticing how it was kind of like people wanted to forget about it in our case. And then I came across this little truth, and then realized, it looks like we have native blood in someone who was maybe was half native, but then. It was probably the same situation. Her mom and dad had her mom was native, her dad was white. And all I'm saying is, okay, so a good time to talk about white people. And I just think that, okay, American whites, especially American white people, are having a lot of trouble, I think, with self-esteem, with identity, especially identity, because we cut ourselves off. I have family who, like Scandinavian, they just cut themselves, our Swedish people, cut themselves off from Swedes there, and I guess it was difficult to even correspond, perhaps, to keep in touch, whatever. But we don't have any connection with our people in Sweden, and we have some in Norway, but, yeah, and then we have, that Dutch, and that goes back. Then we have an English person who came over he and his brother, they first got on the ship and realized the French had Shanghai. I think the French have done this in more cases. They got shanghaied into the French army, and so then they snuck out of that ship, got on a ship in Paris, and then came to America. And then my great grandfather joined Lincoln's army, and so then and there's no connection with anybody back there. So people have lost touch with their European roots, right? That's one thing. So there's a lack of identity that way. I've done a lot to secure my own identity, knowing a lot about my people before me, who they are, where they came from, knowing things about them, and I think that's really important. But a lot of white people are just really lacking self-esteem, and then they were saying that this is what happened to the Germans, in World War One, at the time of World War One, and certainly in the time of World War Two, and they had been doing so great. They were like the gateway to the modern world, and they had all this culture that developed, and they were the cutting edge musicians, and they. Yada yada, and they're like, they are super talented. They have talent in so many areas, and then by that time, now there's America by 1900 or so, they're starting film, starting animation. Animation came along in the 20s, and the music. There's this new music coming from, it's coming from black people, and And that's I notice how the talent of people like that is really hard on the white psyche. It's like, well, what am I? What do I do? But if you just take note of, oh my goodness. So with this new music that black people came out with, and the Euros, Euro-based or Europeans took it and then just created all kind of, new kinds of music, rock and roll. I was just noticing Daft Punk, the writer, he was going to some kind of German disco thing, learning from them, and then he was writing for Donna Summer, and then one of the people was French, and there was this French style of music in the 90s. And then they have American blacks in their group playing guitar, and then they have had Pharrell Williams or Julian Casablancas. It is such a collective of nationalities. But that's the thing is that if you can't think that way, you really miss out. If it becomes so narcissistic, like that, it's got to be about me. It's got to be about us. It's got to be about me, which is what a lot of white people are. It seems like is their mentality right now. I just think that there's lack of self-esteem and a lack of identity, because it just occurred to me, yesterday, that American white people, having especially cut off a lot from Europe, that being European doesn't necessarily make them, they're not proud of anything about Europe, because Europe is Europe and America is America. And they're like, okay, but I'm not European, and which is too bad, because really you should just recognize that's your blood, like they're your blood. But people don't think like that. And it is very narcissistic. And you just know there's been this resurgence of white supremacy, and sadly it seems connected to a particular strain of Christianity, and boy, it's just not Christian. It's certainly when you think of Europe, wow, years and years of Christianity. Well, then you should recognize how there was this turning point, and so much of that turned around, and so that it's kind of like we corrected our mistakes, and then in starting this nation, we corrected so many things, and we helped liberate people in Europe and around the world. And there's just so much to be proud of, like in a really positive way. But the pride thing with white people is not being proud like that. Being proud of it's something really not good, And I just don't know what to say. It really is a lack of identity, lack of self-love, and really it is estrangement from the Creator again. And there's no way it's going to get fixed unless that is corrected. And there's people they're not going to be able to correct that. I know that, but it's just not helping you or anybody else. You're not happy. So this lady, she was white, from my hometown, Fergus Falls, and she wrote her autobiography saying, "I love the devil," which of course translates into "I love evil," right? I love evil. I love the devil. And then she said, "I'm not happy." She even recognized that people believe in God were happy. She said that in her book. And it says in the Bible, "Whoso trusteth in Adonai, in him, happy is he." Well, she recognized that, and which, I can't. It's like, I'm a heroin addict. I gotta stick it. I can't. I gotta have. Give me some more. I can't help it. I know it's bad. It doesn't make me happy. Oh, miserable. So she was miserable by choice, and aren't a lot of people like that? Aren't they miserable by choice? They seem miserable to me. And white supremacy seems like a very miserable situation. You know, and you can say, well, you can have your white supremacy. No, unfortunately, white supremacy is destructive, and that's why it's not okay. Just what I was talking about before. It's not okay. It becomes destructive. We've seen how destructive it can become, especially when you couple it with twisted Christianity. You know.